Oh,
Do you know what that just reminded me of? First off, that noise. It just reminded me of in fucking White Chicks, and she's like, "Let's rock." She's like ripping her hair in his face. Oh, it's recording.
and we didn't do anything to clean up the couch. Hi, I'm gonna keep the pillow up here today because I'm barefoot, and I know you guys love that. So I don't want to give you too much for free, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get any comments as per our requests last week, so you really screwed us on that one.
But hi, you guys. This is the Conscious Cowboys podcast. I'm Tess.
I'm Madison.
And we're going into a full discussion today about womanhood.
Yeah. Are you going to try to look at the camera the whole time? That's impressive, honestly.
So
we're both in tube tops. We're feeling good. It's 8 a.m. We're ready to rock this.
And I'm going to stare for the most part, not at Madison today. I'm going to look ahead because I've been dealing with a lot of neck issues and I've been sleeping without a pillow, which maybe some of you have been through and you're like, yeah, it's really not fun, but you can get over it. But then I started to think, how can I ever reintegrate onto the pillow?
Oh my God. Yes, that's
because
such a hard thing.
I'm so used to, it's been a couple nights, like honestly the longest I've ever been on this stretch of having to sleep without a pillow. And I'm like, can I ever like elevate my head?
Dude, it
again?
Literally is like that meme of like when you're over 30 or like when you're about to turn 30. I don't know exactly what it says. And then it's like you sleep wrong. And then it shows another picture of like a guy in a neck brace. And I'm like, that literally is it. Besides, it's not just sleeping wrong. It's like too much yoga, too much stress, like on your computer. Yeah. I seriously threw out my neck like a year ago probably, and it was the worst injury I've ever had. It was like the only injury I've ever had in my whole life. And like Tess literally was such an angel and was like would massage my neck with Tiger Balm every night. Like I couldn't even turn, like I had to oscillate my whole body. Like I couldn't even turn
good use of vocabulary.
I couldn't even turn my head. Like it was horrible.
Well, if you have neck pain or back pain in general, or like shoulder pain, anything that's like really connected to your torso, I think that really can be debilitating. Like the pain can be so overwhelming that it blocks cognitive function and ability.
Right.
At least in me it has, where I'm like, I'm having a hard time focusing because I'm trying to look at my computer screen, but my neck hurts so bad that I like don't even want to read this right now. I just want to lay flat. So that's, I guess, how I can say that it blocks my cognitive function. But yeah, anyway, so
it's like tell me you're turning 30 without telling me.
Yeah. So I feel like I just did a hard 8 hours of trying to reset my neck. And I think if I crook my head to look at Madison,
you'll be completely fucked.
It'll just go right back to square one and undo all my progress. So here we are. So
what are we going to talk about today?
We're going to talk about womanhood. And I would love...
Dude, the chill of your hands.
Sorry.
No, it feels kind of good, actually. Are they?
The tips.
Oh, yeah.
Womanhood. It's something that I think you are kind of leading me into.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because obviously I'm a woman.
Yes.
And obviously I have my own expression of that. But there's so many times where I'm inspired by Madison as a fellow woman in my life. So I think that's how I can say that, like, you're leading me into
so
it.
So nice.
Because you really have taken a lot of time in the past, I'd say year, to tap deeper into what that means for you. And then you've created rituals around it, or you've started to read different literature that helps promote your connection to it. So I feel like you're on this really deep journey, and it's inspired me to lean in even more. And obviously there's other things in my life that help me soften into my femininity and things like that. But I would love if you could kind of lead us all on this journey based on your notes.
All right, let's go. That was quite an introduction. I feel really good about that. One thing I will say though, if we're just gonna like stroke each other's ego for a bit, or maybe like each other's soul, if you want to say, is that I was telling Tess this the other day, is that she, like, part of my journey of like entering womanhood, like obviously because I'm a woman and I have always been one, but like this year, I would say like probably since the start of this year, I've given like true meaning to what womanhood means to me. And so I've been reflecting on it, obviously, as I always do. And I was telling Tess that she has like taught me a lot about like nurturing, because I don't come like, I love my mom and she's great and she gave me all that she could like while growing up, but like there wasn't a lot of nurturing in the meaning of like touch or like holding space for one another, I guess you could say. And Tess definitely has shown me that, which is crazy because like, yeah, it is.
Thanks,
Isn't
man.
it? Yeah. Hell yeah. So I really like that. So that's something that I could say for you is that like you're like a strong presence in regard to that in my life. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, where do we want to begin? So we wanted to talk about this topic because I was approaching Tess and telling her that it's been like a huge theme in my life, and I'm reading Women Who Run with the Wolves, obviously. And I seriously advise people to pick that book up. Although a few years ago when I read the first page, I was like, this is way over my head. Like I can't even comprehend these words. So maybe I am at a place now where like the words in the book are like speaking to me on a whole other level, which I think is also cool to like see the evolution of like self. And like now I can look in the book and be like, holy shit, I understand every word versus like 5 years ago I was like, that's weird, like woo woo bullshit. I don't know. Now I understand, which is cool. So Women Who Run with the Wolves, get that book, try it out, see if you like it. It's just about female empowerment and finding like your wild instinctual self and just not being afraid of it. And so that, which is like really crazy because like I am reading a lot of books, and that theme of like not being afraid, like as a woman, is also in the other books I'm reading. So I'm like, the parallels of that is so sick. So then of course, like I want to embody it. Mm-hmm. And also to mention is that this is like the most regular my cycle, like my period has been in my whole life. So I think that there is a connection. Hell yeah.
That takes a lot of work.
It does.
As someone who like has struggled with hormonal stuff for many years, I understand that it is all about consistency.
Yeah.
To get your body to a place where it can find its natural, like,
rhythm.
No pun intended, but flow.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's just, it feels safe enough to have your reproductive functions firing.
It's a blessing.
But that's a lot, like that you've completely changed it.
Yeah.
So that's why I gave you a high five. Because
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like connecting with that part of myself, like so there's so much I could say, but in regard to my cycle, like it is the most regular it's ever been. And so I think that my sense of like being a woman is heightened in that way because I have that connection and just like my body's ability to do that. I'm like, oh my God, we create life. Like we are powerful and actual magic. And earlier in my 20s and like teenhood, I guess, like I wasn't connected to that whatsoever, especially because I did everything in my power to basically not have a period and like be the smallest version of myself possible. And now I'm like, okay, more life, regular period, no shame around self. I want to like dive into womanhood full throttle.
Wow.
Yeah. There's like so much I could say, but like I was telling Tess yesterday, like my notes are like literally mystical, like there's no order to them, and like Tess is like that order for me sometimes.
Well, okay, so I think that this is a good balance then, because I can talk about like on a personal level what I've been experiencing that is probably really relatable for other women who are listening, and then you can be like a guru in a sense where you're like, no, young children, this is not how we think anymore, right?
Yeah,
come
maybe.
to the other side where it's peaceful. And
I am mother, like literally let me guide you. Yeah, that's funny.
So like for me, I've been a little bit hard on my body recently, and it's not always been that way. Like I've had periods of my life where I've been really confident and not even thought twice about my body, which was really awesome. But lately I've been really aware of it, not in a positive way. And I'll make comments to Philip or to Madison, and they're both just like, okay, enough. This has got to stop. And I'm inspired by you because you don't ever talk negative about your body. And
dude,
that's
true.
pretty rare.
Yeah.
Now, I would say that my other best friends also, I don't hear them talking negative about their body either. I'm not spending as much time with them, right? Like they live far away from me, but I feel really fortunate that I have a group of women around me that doesn't berate themselves in a physical way or in any way, really. Like everyone's pretty accepting of themselves, which is awesome. But I just feel like I'm in a rut lately where I haven't been able to accept who, or like not who I am, because I accept that, but like what I look like. Not fully, but there's just lapses in better judgment.
Right.
And so when I hear you talk about like the power of the body and like your ability to adapt and change and how it serves more purposes than just looking good, like I know that deep down, but on a day where I'm being particularly shallow, those conversations are just not in my head.
Yeah. And also same for me. It's not like every day I think like, oh, I'm only going to focus on like the function of my body and not what I look like. Yeah, exactly. Like absolutely. I really try to retrain my thoughts to go back to that. But it definitely is a journey because some days I lose it. And then some days I have complete clarity where I'm like, oh my God, I don't even like, looking in the mirror, but I only see like the good things. And those days, those are the best days. And I feel like I try to remind myself of those because usually when I'm critical on myself or like what I look like there's minimal joy in my life.
Oh my
you
gosh.
know?
Yeah.
Like you can obviously bring joy to others and like try to forget about it as much as possible, but like you yourself are not having a good day or a good moment when you're thinking those thoughts. And I feel like I really want to like have a strong life force always, like we always say, and that just detracts from it. And I don't want any part of that. And like we were talking about how I always try to draw things back to like, okay, if I'm behaving one way or have a certain pattern with things, like where does this stem from originally? So if we're talking about like being harsh on the body and I guess just being harsh on the body, typically the women in my life have not been accepting of their own body. So like naturally as a child, I took that upon myself too.
Like this is just what we do. This is how we
Yes,
talk.
this is how women are. Like this is what they think about themselves. Never good enough. Like always trying to change something. And since I've seen that exemplified to me nonstop, and I still see it, like even with strangers who are women, like I just don't want to be a part of that culture at all. And so even speaking about it on this podcast, like I want to forge like a new, like I just want to go in a completely different direction than that, because if we are going to be raising children one day, like I don't want to pass that on to them.
Oh my God, I know.
Yeah. And I know that like trauma is passed generationally, but like healing can be passed too. And I just want to go in that direction rather than the latter, you know?
I was laughing just now because I was saying, like, we were talking about this yesterday more in depth, trying to like conceptualize, like, where do we want to go with this for you guys? And I was just saying, do you think if we were raised by, like, okay, this is to not shit on our parents. Obviously, we're obsessed with our family.
Yes, we
like,
love
if
them.
you knew us on a personal level outside of the podcast, you'd be like, yeah, big family-oriented girls. But it's been established we are like, we're a little vain, right?
Yes. Oh my God.
And I think just the culture itself is vain. It's not just our parents or our household or whatever. But if we were raised by people who were just so loving of the body and it was not on the emphasis of what you look like and
only how it performs, how you feel emotionally,
right.
physically.
And you just like, if that was preached to us from a young age, like, would you be a different person today? And you don't have no way of knowing.
Right.
But then it makes me think, okay, I'm probably not going to be fully that way. Because I'm not that way right now. Like, end of day, I really care about the function of my body. I want it to not be in pain. I want it to be able to accomplish anything that I set my mind to. I want to feel strong. And as you were saying, like a life force. I don't want to feel any negative symptoms that like to linger around, right?
Yes.
But I also would like to make sure that like we feel our best, because looking our best is part of feeling your best, right?
Yeah.
When you take care of how you look, and because that's your outward projection to the world.
Yes.
Okay. You're going to feel even better. So it's not like I can scrap all of that and just be like, my babies, we are only about function. The physical self, the external self doesn't matter, because in my opinion, it does.
Yeah. So then I would also say that like I truly believe that if everything is functioning well and you feel good in your skin, like you are going to look good.
I agree. And I think the harder you are on yourself, the more it reflects physically.
Yes, I will definitely probably, I mean, I don't know. I can never say like absolutely this is how it will be, but like I think I will always care about how I look on the outside because like you said, it is like that's how we present ourselves. So yes to that. I just want there to be more of an emphasis on the internal. And I don't want to have to worry about the external as much. Like the worry like literally drains me of life and I don't want that anymore.
I fully I am on board with what you're saying because that's a lot of times like when I've been saying that I've been feeling like and I've been critical on myself, it is such a deterrent from me living fully.
Right.
My like any thoughts about my body in a not positive way are dragging me fucking way down into a pit that no one can help you climb out of. Honestly, like you can get compliments or like the helping hand is there all day. But in reality, that's stuff that you have to work out with yourself and you have to find peace with where you're at. And in my opinion, the way that I can kind of get myself out of the weeds, because as we've established on here, I'm like a solutions oriented person, right? I'm like, okay, this is where I'm at. How do I get out of it? And it's really about, from what I've observed in other people, especially like with you, it's about creating rituals that help you feel like yourself.
Yeah, dude, I wrote rituals on my notes too
I'm not
because I was like,
surprised 'cause
how
you've been
did
putting
we
that in my
not?
brain.
Yeah, I was like, how did we not talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, continue.
Because if you are practicing things that call your energy back into yourself and that make you feel genuinely good, like not make you feel good of like, oh, I got a workout in, so I know that I've like feel better. Because sometimes a workout doesn't feel better, right? Sometimes you're depleted.
And then sometimes you're not able to get to a workout. So like relying on that to make you feel good and feel like you're fit, that's just fleeting sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
And we exercise almost on a daily basis.
Yeah.
It's not that we're preaching to not exercise, but it's not putting all of the eggs in that one basket, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It's being able to also treat rest as one of those things that helps you fuel back up. Or going out and socializing with your friends, or treating yourself to a nice meal, or going grocery shopping for things that you are excited to consume or make. Like, I think that those are ways that I go, okay, that's what makes me feel more like me.
Yeah.
It's not just forcing my body into exercise and a certain way of eating so that I can slim down and that's what's going to make me feel like me, because we've tried that, right? And I mean, for a moment you feel like, I'm on it.
Yeah, you have that like high of like, oh, this is good. And then it's never enough.
Correct.
That's what I found like for me is that feeling of not being enough based off of what I see like physically and like what I present outwardly, I don't want that anymore. Like I want to feel like I'm enough and I want to accept myself fully, even if I, for example, want to build more muscle and I don't have more muscle, whatever it is. But yeah, I just want to be fully accepting. And I think that if we're drawing back to womanhood, like reminding yourself of that. And also seriously, the fact, like if I ever have a thought about food of like, oh, fuck, like maybe I shouldn't eat that, that is literally pushed aside, like literally pushed against the wall, because I think about how our bodies create life. Like I was saying earlier, like that is so fucking awesome. And I never want to detract from that ever. Like that is pure life force. And so that always helps me make food decisions. I'm like, yeah, you need to eat to fuel your body for many reasons. Like you work out hard. If you want to have kids, yeah, you want your cycle to be on it. You want everything to be strong. So that's helpful.
Very.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So outside of body, right? Because I think that's one that we can all easily come to an agreement on of like, yeah, we've all been there. We get into a cycle where we're just not kind to ourselves and it doesn't really lead you down a positive path. And you can think, oh, well, it got me to lose X amount of weight, or it got me to like look like this. But really, like, what was your mindset like in that time? And how was it even when you got out? Say you accomplished that physical goal, then what? Was it enough? Like we were just saying, did you feel better? Or did you find something else to fixate on?
Right. Yeah, I know it's always hard to like speak about that thing of like wanting to alter your body because we've never had to really alter our body in such a significant way. So sometimes I feel like ill-equipped to speak on it.
Yeah, but okay, what I will say is yes, totally, right? We haven't done like a big transformation journey where we put everything into it and we came out on the other side where we feel good and victorious, because I know that that's a thing, right?
Yes.
People, I've seen it a million times over. But I have in my own body been like, oh, if I could just fill in the blank, right? When I had my really gnarly skin condition, if I could just have my clear skin again where my face is not constantly inflamed, I promise I will always feel good and I'll never take it for granted. And then you hit that period where you're like,
You take it for granted.
and then you're right back in it where
so
you're
true.
picking on something else and you forget that you even had a skin condition, right? So that's what I'm saying is everyone's journey to this looks different, and maybe some people's approaches are different, or they're where they're at now, like it is resolved for them and they do feel amazing. But I would say majority of us can always find something else to go to.
Yeah.
And so I guess just maybe like taking the importance out of that, and as you were saying, re-inject it back into the internal self is really major.
Yeah.
And the more you love yourself, I think on an internal level, the easier it is for you to take care of yourself on an external level.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like going and taking care of your body by exercising or by making choices that you know are going to help you feel better the next day. All of that stuff comes more naturally when you're in a state of like, okay.
Yeah. And
good.
Also bringing it back to the rituals thing is that is such a pivotal thing, like especially in my life. Like I was just telling Tess that this morning I took a bath. I got up early, took a bath, had my iced coffee in there and was reading. And like the joy that brought me, like it just started my day off on such a high. And like if I'm reminding or remembering back to like when I used to like get up and have to work out right away, you know, and I'm like, did that actually fulfill me? And the answer is no, it didn't, which is okay. And I'm happy that I went through that to realize like what I don't want, but to work towards and like integrate all of those little rituals, or I guess you could say they could be called routines if you wanted to say that. But rituals to me sounds like more like devotional work, like loving. Like I'm like, oh, I have these little rituals that make my day great. And I was talking to my cousin about this the other day, and she was reading something about rituals and how people are saying, oh, that cuts off freedom. Like you have to do all these things. And we were like, no, that's literally celebrating our freedom. Like I have the time to do this, to take a bath and have my iced coffee in the morning and read. And I'm going to do it because that feels good. And now my day is going to be strong as fuck. Yeah. It's a good feeling.
Yeah. And if we take one more moment on this idea, when I don't feel like myself, it's because I'm not doing those things that make me feel good. And then it's a snowball effect.
Yes.
Right. So it's even more of a reason to get back into, if you're not currently doing your rituals, or you're thinking like, oh, these my rituals? Like maybe sit down and reassess, like, what do I like?
Yeah.
How do I need to restructure? Because like you were saying, you could get into a habit of, my ritual is waking up first thing in the morning and exercising because that makes me feel good. And maybe that is the case for you, but maybe it's not, right? You don't know unless you try something different.
Yeah. Yeah. And something I will say about that too is like I was previously so afraid to like change up my routine out of fear of like, I was fearful to give up my routine because I had the fear of like maybe I would look different or change something, change my attitude, whatever it would be. And now I don't fear that change quite as much. Because
you've lived through it and you realize that it's not as monumental.
Yeah, it's like it's not going to alter me like in some significant way that's going to be so negative. And then I always go back to, which we mentioned, is that if I'm doing things out of love for myself and doing things that make me feel good, then the outcome is going to be good. Like that just naturally is how it goes. So yeah, I'm happy to find peace with that now.
Yeah, thanks for showing me that that's the case too.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks. Something that you talk a lot about is like in regards to womanhood is intuition.
Yes, I'm obsessed with it.
Can you talk to us about it?
Okay, so Tess had a really good point yesterday when we were talking about this is, yes, I'm obsessed with intuition, because I do feel that we have a lot of wisdom internally and we don't need to seek as many external pieces of advice or whatever it is as often as we do. Like, I think that we can look within and find the answers that we need a lot of the time. And that is like a huge piece of womanhood for me, is like that connection with intuition, like just like that inner knowing, like innate wild self, like as women. What is it? Women Who Run with the Wolves. How do I forget that title? That book.
There's a lot of W's.
It is. There are a lot of W's. Thank you. Yeah. So anyway, that book like preaches that a lot. And I'm just like, that's why it speaks to me. Because I'm like, I love intuition and like that inner knowing. Like, I want to tap into that so hardcore and like understand myself on that level. And that's what it talks about. So what I was saying is that Tess had a good point yesterday, is like, how do I tap into that intuition? Because sometimes it's like, in my head, I just think, well, I just do it. Like, I just am tuned in and connected. I'm like, okay, well, if someone was asking me,
and I was
like
that
what
drives
does
someone
that mean?
like me
Yeah, exactly.
nuts,
Because what does
I'm
that
like,
even mean? Like, I'm
excuse
like
me?
so deep in the rabbit hole that I'm like, oh, I just like listen to myself.
You
And people
forgot
are like,
how
well,
you
what the
got
fuck
there.
is that? Yeah. So Tess had a good point saying that, well, you always ask a lot of questions. I'm like, okay, that's as, even if that's very simple that you said that, but that is like on it. It's like the only thing that I needed to hear and be like, oh yeah, I do ask a lot of questions, not only to like if people are seeking out advice, but to myself. Like, I think that it's really important to get quiet in whatever that means for you. Like, you don't have to actually sit and be silent, but like, even if you're in bed at night or like in a bath or with a book, yeah, whatever, in nature, I just ask myself questions. Like, I tune in and kind of feed off of like, okay, what is my body feeling like right now? Like, is there any like tension, or like, is there happiness, sadness? Like, what is it and why? Like, I always want to know why. And then like after that, I keep digging deeper and deeper, and the questions just get more expansive. And then that's how I tap into intuition. And then I feel like since I have that connection with it, it's just easier to employ like in my everyday life now.
Okay.
Yeah. Like in my journal, that's like a huge one for me. And I don't journal every day anymore. Maybe like sometimes I'll journal for 5 days straight. Sometimes it'll be a month break. And then, you know, like it just depends. Like, I don't put that pressure on myself of like, I need to journal every day. It's just like, okay, when you feel like it, just do it. And I was reading my journal entry the other day to Tess of like, the prompt was like, what is my wound? Like, everyone has wounds, whether it be from childhood or like someone cut you off in traffic the other day and that like really made you spiral. I don't know. That could be a wound. So I just wanted to figure that out. And I kept like asking myself questions like throughout the whole journal entry. And I read it out loud to Tess. And I was like, and that's how I keep like diving deeper. I just like imagine like my internal self is like a well that I keep like digging deeper and deeper down into. And then I want to get to like that core and be like, okay, is this it? Or can we go deeper? I don't know. Let's find out.
Yeah. And from what I've observed in you specifically is like the more that you practice asking yourself these questions, the easier it is to kind of get from point A to point B, right? There's less of those surface questions that you have to go through. Like, you've already skipped to step 5 now, and now you get to go deeper. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
For someone who's more of a beginner who, I don't know, like me, I don't want to call myself a beginner. Novice is a better word for it, right?
Novice.
A novice when it comes to tapping into that. And if you're newer with us, a reason that I believe that that's the case with me is because I've spent a lot of years placing decision making in other people's courts, right? I'm someone in the past, and even now to this day, I'm really trying to catch myself on it of, well, what do you want to do? What would you prefer? Tell me. It's like, it's fine. What do you want? So that I never ask myself, what do I want? Or what do I think is right? I mean, yes, I ask myself, what do I think is right? And I retract the statement. It's not that I never. Right. But I find myself in that pattern a lot. For whatever reasons that is. And it's harder for me to ask myself these questions because I'm not used to answering these questions.
Okay.
Right? So even as simple as someone saying, what would you like for dinner? Oh gosh, I don't know.
Yeah. Dude.
What
That's
makes
the question,
you feel
isn't it?
good? You know, that's an easier question for me to answer. But it just seems like you are someone who is really going deeper with yourself, and you're establishing this better sense of identity with yourself. Stronger sense of identity, not better,
Yes.
stronger, because you are taking time for that. And I'm not comparing myself to you in a bad way. I'm just recognizing kind of why I feel like I'm not there. And it's because I'm not prioritizing such things. I'm going from task to task that is on my plate from the outside world, and I'm not doing my rituals that I know calls myself back in. I'm not spending any time in quietness by myself, asking myself questions. I am truly, like, the time I get alone is in the car driving from point A to point B.
Right.
That's not enough time. I think we all can recognize that, but I think you don't realize it until you hear of someone doing this and you go, oh, whoa, that's a whole other world that I don't tap into on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I think it is really interesting too, because since that is so prominent in my world, like, I think about, like, the fact that a lot of people don't do it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's not quote unquote normal.
No, we move from plan to plan.
Yeah, and I don't know where that comes from, like, why I like that, why I like to do that. I just think, like, one of my maybe, like, values or goals is just to have the strongest sense of self, and that is my chosen route to do so, like, to achieve that.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
It's
something else. I fucking love it, dude. I like the connection to womanhood and, like, finding, like, deeper meaning within myself has seriously changed my world. And, like, I feel like it has changed within, like, the last 5 months.
Great. That's radical transformation then. That's quick.
It honestly, yeah, didn't feel quick, but now, like, looking back, of course I have, like, a lot more work to do. And also I was talking to someone this last weekend, and we were talking about, like, a sense of self and, like, soul guided work. And he was saying that he went on this whole journey with it, and then he stopped working on it, and then it just goes away, like, that connection to self. And I was like, I honestly understand that, because it's not like all of a sudden I have, like, this connection to my womanhood and, like, deep knowing, and I feel, like, super confident in self, and that's awesome. It's going to be the way that I live my life from here on out without doing anything to tap back in. Like, that is just not how it works. Like, you reach a level and it can totally decline if you don't keep up that work with yourself. And I was like, that is such a good point. How did I not think of that before? You know, like, I was just like, wow, that's also why I like to talk with people a lot. Like, not a lot. There's certain situations where I'd rather not talk to people, but, like, sometimes you get some gems, you know, and you're just like, oh man, I needed to hear that, because yes, every day I do work at it. And, like, I want to keep that known to myself so that I can keep up, like, that devotional work moving forward.
Yeah. And to further press the importance of that, the people that I love to be around the most are the people that do this, right? The most interesting people, the most wise people, the most calming energy to be around.
Dude, it is, yeah.
Are the people who spend time with themselves.
So true.
Yeah, because I think about, like, why do I have social anxiety sometimes? And it's because I have to go into situations where it's surface level. Yes. And I just, like, I don't want to talk about surface level shit right now.
Yes.
No.
I know, I'm the same way.
So then it's calming for me to be around someone who's like, all of that shit doesn't matter. Let's talk about something real.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm in the jacuzzi
great.
now.
Yeah, exactly. I feel warm and fuzzy. Let's fucking dive into this.
Sure. And it's not that every conversation that ever happens needs to not be surface level. But I'm just saying, sometimes when you are going out and you have social anxiety, maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Because it's too surface for you.
No, honestly, it's true, because I feel like a lot of my, like, I really value my depth. And when people don't acknowledge that or, like, try to tap into it, then I'm just like, well,
what am I doing here?
Yeah. What is, like, I don't have any, I mean, of course I do, but I don't have anything to throw at you of, like, oh yeah, I make, you know, this much a year and I drive this car. Like, I just don't want to talk about that. Like, Please talk about what actually matters, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it just doesn't happen, and that's okay too. And we learn a lot from the people who just want to talk about surface level stuff. I'm like, okay, I'm out at a bar. I'm not drinking. Like, this really helps me further like my ability to talk to people about this shit. Like, all right, this is a good test. Let's go. Let's see how we do. Yeah. Oh, damn. We did good on that.
I also had no idea my phone was sitting here until
it just
2
went
seconds
off
before it went off. And I was like, oh, that's
yeah,
my phone.
I was
What's
like, I don't think that's mine. Yeah, that's why I just turned it over. I was like, let's just, yeah, we were really locked in there. I'm really proud of that.
Okay, something that helps me be more myself is in embracing my womanhood is finding other women who are unique and very strong in their sense of identity.
Yeah.
Right? Being able, I don't have to be exactly like them, but seeing how they are themselves helps me go, oh, I can be myself, right?
Dude, it's the best.
The one person that immediately comes to my mind outside of like my close network of girls in my life, someone that I don't physically know, Jessie Golden. We talk about her so much, but right now she is someone that's, for some reason, she's in my ether and I'm inspired by her and I like to consume what she shares with the world because it's just, it feels like a beacon for me and I'm like, keep following
No,
it.
I honestly fully understand that because a lot of women that I have been enamored with or like inspired by have felt like a motherly presence to me. And Jessie like Golden has just had a child and she's just glowing and beautiful and like has this amazing attitude towards life that she presents out into the world. And so I'm like, that is like mother. Like Brogan, one of my best friends, I've always described her as like mother. Like she's just like Mother Earth to me. And I feel like I'm just seeking a lot of moms or something. I don't really know what it is because I was having this conversation with Tess is that my mom was amazing and she is amazing. And she gave me only what she could like from her inner knowing and like her mom before her and generations before that. And I like am still needing more. So like a big part of tapping into womanhood for me is like mothering myself. And that has been huge because typically I'm not like a nurturing type of person. So like Tess having that nurturing side to her, like that is mother. Like she is a mother to me in a sense because she's taught me that. And I have a lot of other figures like that in my life, thank God. And just like the value that I place and both of us place like on sisterhood alone. Like the women in my life are some of the best in the fucking world. And I'm so grateful for that. And that also is a part of womanhood, like having that collective group versus like being in competition with one another. Like, it's like, no, we are family. Like we can learn from each other and we're a community.
Yeah. And the more you surround yourself with people who are like that no competition, just support, just love, like it's almost like they lay the tracks out for you, right? And you keep laying the tracks one in front of the other for each other so that the path is easier for your children or even just other women that are our age that want to come down this path. It's such a no-brainer for us to be like that, to hold hands with other people, but that's not some people's experience.
Right.
And I have to, like, sometimes it's very jarring for me when I realize that. I'm like, oh, what?
Dude, I know.
Oh,
I know. But, and then
let me lead the way for you then.
Yes,
let
exactly.
me be so warm, naturally warm to you because it's better on this side. I promise.
Yeah. And I'm happy that we can create that culture for people. Like I want us to be that. And so I'm happy we have this podcast because at least we have like one platform other than that can be outward reaching versus just like us in our regular day lives when we only like see 10 people.
Yeah.
I was like, do you think it died?
No.
Oh, it scared me. I was like, it's been dead.
Checking minutes.
Okay.
What else do you have on your list?
Well, one thing I guess I can say, which I think this has been like a part of this conversation anyway, is like embracing womanhood is synonymous to me with being softer, like internally, like softer with myself, kinder, more patient, not seeing that as a weakness. Like there's still a lot of power in that. And the duality between all of that, like I think makes up womanhood, if that makes sense. And so I was telling Tess yesterday, I was like, yeah, I'm sure many people have heard like soft girl era. And I haven't really looked that up. Have you not?
No.
Dude, I don't know. Where do I see that? Maybe on Tumblr and stuff. Anyway, so it's a thing, definitely. And I'm pretty sure it's on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok, but I'm pretty fucking sure it's soft girl era is like a thing. And I haven't really looked up the definition of that, but if I could, I assume that it means that, like being softer and kinder, more gentle with yourself, and like allowing yourself to step into femininity versus being so masculine all the time. Like being in my hustle, like forcing myself to be like a mini man. That just doesn't work for me anymore. And the sooner I accept that, the more gentle I will be with myself. So I'm in my soft girl era, I think.
Yeah, fuck, me too.
Like I want to just like fully embody that because I'm tired of being so like harsh and forceful and distant. You know, like I just want to be different.
When you have to remind yourself that being like as you coined it, like mini man, like in your hustle era, that doesn't always, like that's not the only path to getting where you want to go. Right. So if you convince yourself that I have to bend over backwards, spread myself so thin in order to get to my end goal, you're wrong. Right. Because there's other ways,
so many
to
different
do it.
paths. Yeah.
So, and we talk about that a lot too, when it comes to career path and things like that. Like doesn't always have to be status quo, right? Mm-hmm. Just because you've seen it done this way doesn't mean that's the only way to get there. And leaning into softening for me has been, I don't need to do all of this for one. Mm-hmm. Like, not only do I not have to go above and beyond in these ways, I don't have to be the only one to do these things.
Right.
My freaking past 10 years has been like, I can do it. I'll do it. Don't worry. I got it. For what? For what? Why did I take on all of that responsibility? I have a few reasons why, right? I think not taking initiative is in my head like being lazy, mm-hmm. which then there's a whole stigma around being lazy and how you don't want to be lazy, right? But another thing is too, like I've tried to keep up, like I've tried to keep the momentum going, like, oh, they're doing it, I can do that. My brother's doing it. I grew up with the boys. Now I need to be able to do that too, mm-hmm. because I got to keep up with them. So there's just this like go that forced my body into a hormone imbalance that I think forced my mind into an imbalance, and probably my entire body takes reflection of that. And I'm realizing that I can still, like, I think maybe even the softer I can become with myself in certain areas, the more I'm going to relax into my being. And as you tell me all the time, like maybe that's what your body, like whenever you find like the peace within and your sense of calm or flow or whatever, that's when your body is probably going to be like at its best.
Yes.
Right? Like whatever your natural state is, that's when it's going to reflect it, mm-hmm. instead of trying to manipulate all of these moving parts.
Yeah, I truly believe that, and I want to be that example, you know, like I want to live differently, and I think you do too, and still reach a result that is favorable to us, because I think that is really possible. Because I've seen like women, if I look at my mom, go like from day until dawn. Is dawn morning? Dawn. Day until dusk?
Dawn until dusk?
Yes.
Yeah.
That serves a purpose fully, but like I just want to show that like you can still achieve the results that she's achieving, but like at a slower pace, being kinder to yourself and all of the things related to that. Like I really do think that it's possible, and I just want to live that, so that it's like, oh, okay, yeah, if she's doing it, then I can. Mm-hmm. So I want to like find that out and like get into the nooks and crannies of it, so that like I can be a beacon. Yeah, and you too.
Yeah, I think that there's like, if we can picture like the span of a day or a week, like there are moments where you should absolutely hustle.
Let's go. Sometimes. Yeah.
Like, let's get things moving. And then you have to balance that though. And I think that that's what we're trying to touch on, is it's not like, oh, you give up this idea of like challenge and pressure. Like, no.
No, that's what I was saying is like, yeah, softening, but there still is a lot of power in that too.
Yeah.
And you could use like nature as an example of like how water is soft, but after a while the waves keep crashing into rock and it changes the shape of the rock, you know?
Yeah.
Like we reflect nature, and I think that that's also important to remember. That's why we like going on hikes so much. Like literally I look at a tree and I'm like, okay, this tree is different from that tree. They're both beautiful to me. Everything's fine in my life. The sun's shining. Like I can do this.
There you go.
Yeah, it's true. It's like literally that simple. I just can do that. I'd be like, all right, everything's fine. I laugh with my friends one day and I'm like, this is the point of life. This right here, laughing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that it is fun just to like talk about this and approach this conversation as like novices, obviously. And it's only going to broaden from here. So like this conversation here is obviously not absolute, and nothing we say here is, because we're always changing and we allow that to happen. And so I think that it's good that we're starting here and now, because I think it's going to become something great.
Yeah. And hopefully everyone benefits just from this one act of checking in and trying to course correct.
Yeah, because it does feel like empowering to speak about this. Like it makes you really want to do the work. Because what are we waiting for? If not now, when? Like, let's connect it back to last week's episode. Come on.
I feel like that's where we can cool it.
Yeah, I feel good about that, honestly. Like I feel really good.
Yeah. Thank you guys for being here and listening.
Yeah, thank you. How's your neck?
It's like, that's why I was like, I think we're good to cool it here.
Yeah, she's like, I need to get the fucking heating pad on my neck right away.
I just need to get up off the couch.
No, I totally agree with you.
But thank you. If you're not already subscribed, please make sure that you do that. That is going to keep you in the loop with us every single week, so you don't have to go searching for our podcast or our YouTube videos. And if you're not already following us on Instagram, that's where we share a lot of like our day-to-day stuff. So that's a way to be more involved with us outside of a Wednesday morning.
At the Conscious Cowboys, across all platforms. We got this.
We got this.
All right.
Thanks. Love you guys.
Yeah.
Have a good
Talk
week.
soon.
Why did I wave? Like, every time I do that, I'm like, why?